Welcome to the How You Breathe is How You Live podcast. This is the first episode of what may be a 4-part series on science of breathwork and the unusual effectiveness of breathwork. At the end of every episode, I say how you breathe is how you live, and usually that's where I leave it. Congratulations, show's over, figure out what I mean for yourself. But today, we're actually going to talk about what that means. Most of us spend our lives trying to fix ourselves from the top down. We try to think, reason, and white-knuckle our way into being better people. But newsflash, you're going to run out of willpower, and your analytical mind is a terrible therapist. We're talking about why breathwork is the bottom-up hack your nervous system has been waiting for. It's the only lever you have that can reset your health bar to 100% in a matter of minutes. And we talk about why your body is a storehouse of wisdom your brain hasn't even met yet. Your mind might be confused by this process, but your nervous system is going to say, finally, because you can't reason your way out of a feeling, but you can certainly breathe your way through one. I'm joined today by Josh and Riley. Let's go. Welcome to the unusual effectiveness of conscious connected breathwork. How you breathe is how you live. You hear me say that at the end of every episode. And you might be wondering, what do you mean when you say how you breathe is how you live? And what I mean is just that. How you breathe is how you live. Congratulations, show's over. Figure it out, people.
About to be one co-host down over here.
So what I mean by that is that you can't think or reason your way out of an emotional problem. That oftentimes the reactions that we have to things are not rational, reasonable positions, that they are emotional effects that we're having within us, and we're trying to control it with our rational mind. And that your breath is not just keeping you alive. It is the thing that is keeping you alive. It's also shaping your identity. You can go weeks or months without food. You can go several days without water, but you can only go a couple minutes without taking a breath. That health bar gets reset back to 100 every time you take a full breath. And that breath is the fastest way and the most directive lever to influence your physiology, your body, how you feel, your emotions, your perceptions, and your behavior. Most people, when they're trying to affect a change in their life, when they're trying to change the course of the direction of their life, they're trying to do it from the top down, from their analytical mind. I have friends who will try to lock in. All right, I'm going to lock in and do this, and then he never does it. And other people are trying to white knuckle things. At a certain point, you are going to run out of effort and willpower, and white knuckling is not going to work anymore. But breath work works from the bottom up. The mind is top down. My brain is going to give an edict, and then I will live my life thus. And we usually end up not living our life thus. When conditions are optimum and everything is going well and all the lights are green from here to the office, we make it swimmingly. In everybody's life, complications arise. And when those complications arise, when we're doing it from the top down, it becomes very difficult, if not almost impossible. And breath work works from the bottom up. It begins in your body and then goes into your nervous system and then affects your mind and then alters your identity. And one of the things that I love about breathwork is when people come to their first visit and they sit up and they have this just 1,000-yard stare look in their eyes. They can't believe what just happened. They don't fully understand what happened, but they know something definitely changed.
Are those the folks that ask if they did it right?
That is one of my favorite stories. We had a girl come to breathwork, and when she sat up at the end and gave her share, she was like, yeah, I saw geometry and colors, and I was sailing through the universe on the back of a narwhal whale, and then I was jumping through waves, and then the waves became the universe, and I was sailing past stars. I don't think I did it right.
You didn't do it wrong.
I would like to say that I had the professional composure not to facepalm, but I didn't. When people try and change their life from the top down, we can use losing weight as a good one. That people are like, oh, I'm going to enforce this strict diet. And again, when things are going well, you can adhere to the diet. But when your schedule gets full, when your time gets harried, when you've missed time something and now you're starving, all of a sudden those tacos from the taco stand look really appetizing and you end up caving. So that is one of the problems with a top-down solution instead of a bottom up, in that you experience that physical change in your body. The bottom up, body, nervous system, mind, identity. When you are an emotional eater, that is a physical sensation that you're trying to overcome. You can't go, oh, I am not hungry for ice cream. I have made the decision mentally that I am not going to want to eat ice cream. Something has to change in your body and your nervous system so that you don't have that craving anymore, or that craving isn't as strong as it was. And that as that develops through your mind and then towards your identity, you become the kind of person who says, I am not the type of person who overeats ice cream. I can have a bite or two and I can put it down. Whereas previously it was like somebody who has those cravings, you might say, I am going to have an Oreo, and the next thing you know, you've wiped out a sleeve of Oreos. So going from the top down isn't going to do away with that craving. And when you take it from the bottom up, you may still have a draw towards Oreo, but you don't need to overeat them to the point of, I don't stop when I'm full, I stop when I hate myself.
It's a good stop cue.
That was Larry the Miller comedian's line. I don't stop eating when I'm full, I stop eating when I hate myself. And first time he dropped that, I was like, oh, that hurts.
Ow.
Is that kind of what we're talking about with a bottom-up approach?
I think one of the most unusual aspects of breath work is that when it comes to one of the big differences between therapy and breath work is that therapy is largely giving you tactics and strategies for how to deal with things. And you need those tactics and strategies. Like, this is the best way to approach that. And CBT is a wonderful form of therapy, and it gives you a wonderful tool set to deal with the challenges in your life like that. What it's not giving you is the capacity. And then one of the things that breath work does is it lessens the effect of the triggers in your life, that the triggers can still be there, and the triggers of your life are probably always going to be at some level that they're going to create a response in you. And what breath work does is it lessens the effect of that response. Instead of it being an overwhelming impulse, you can look at it and go, yep, that's an impulse. What strategy should I use to deal with this? Before breath work, you could say, I have a strategy to deal with, and there's no way that I have the ability or the power to deal with this because these are just so overwhelming. That it's changing that physiological, emotional response that happens in you. I've talked before about somebody leaving one full car length between them and the car in front of them at the Starbucks drive-thru. And in my mind, it's very easy for me to say, this is not a big deal. But in my body and my stomach is going, honk the horn. Roll down the window and yell at this person and let them know they need to do better in life. Now, I didn't, but it also, in that moment, was like, this is a very minor situation. I don't know why my body's reacting this strongly to this. I do not appreciate this. We need to go have a look at this somewhere in breath work and work through what is causing this so that I don't have a reaction that strong. If somebody did that today, I'd be like, what are we doing here? But I wouldn't feel the need to honk or roll down the window or have a word with them or correct them. I would still be mildly annoyed. You're using up time here for no benefit that I can see.
Therapy takes this given that you're going to feel a certain way, just replace the behavioral aspect of it with something less antisocial. Whereas the breathwork approach that you're describing is you want to actually rewire the reaction that you have to be a 2 out of 10 instead of a 9 out of a 10, or maybe even a 1 or 0 out of 10.
Correct. And I think making it a 2 or a 1 or a 3 or between a 3 to 1 reaction within you is realistic. We're all dealing, the problems that we have in our life, the hardships that we have in our life are always going to be the hardships that we have in our life. We're going to deal with them at a higher level, at a more skillful level, at a level where we are less intense about it. But the tendencies that we have are the tendencies that we have. Your tendencies for things are not going to be completely resolved and go away permanently. It'll just be a more manageable.
I would categorize that as a nervous system reset, which I think is the major difference. To my understanding, therapy, you're treating the symptoms, whereas breath works by increasing the capacity gives you the ability to treat like the root cause, which is the nervous system reaction.
You're still going to need a beneficial skill set and strategy to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
Like
100% worth
just
it.
because you now have the emotional capacity to deal with somebody in your life doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a good strategy for how to set boundaries. I have this capacity now. I can set a boundary without screaming at them. How do I set a boundary? Like that's still there's still a blocking and tackling element to that you need to be able to execute on. You have the ability and the space to be able to make a better choice. A lot of what we're doing on this podcast is now that you have the capacity to make a better choice, here's the better choice you can make. Now that we're calm, we can deal with it this way instead of that way.
Can we go back to the how you breathe is how you live for the skeptics? I only believe that because of lived experience. 7 years ago, I'd have been like, no, get out of here. You can feel the difference pretty immediately if you try to breathe through your mouth as fast as you can for a minute. Try to take only 10 breaths only through your nose in a minute and pay attention to how you feel. There's an immediate physiological reaction. Even if you don't believe how you breathe is how you live, how you breathe is how you feel in a very obvious way.
Yeah. Breathing, posture, facial expression. I think breathing is the most effective in changing how you feel and how you live. If you change your posture, if you change how you stand, if you change how you present to the world, it'll change how you feel. Yeah, if you stand there like Superman or Wonder Woman and put the hands on the hips, chest up, and just stand there like that for 30 seconds, you may feel silly for 30 seconds, but you'll also feel more empowered afterwards.
Parts of the brain don't have access to the talk track. The feedback that it's getting is, oh, we're breathing really fast and shallow. Something scary must be happening because that's the most likely cause of it versus we're breathing calm and slowly. Everything must be fine.
Yes. And one of the reasons for that, the part of your brain that controls your emotions is literally next door neighbors with the part of your brain that controls breathing. They are physically adjacent, and therefore they talk to each other rather easily.
How do they talk to each other?
I don't speak neuron, but from what I understand, it's a biochemical electric light experience that it uses all three mechanisms to communicate within the brain. The breathwork experience starts simple, almost too simple. Most people think this is just breathing. How powerful could it be? Everybody thinks that they are an expert on nutrition because everybody's eating every day. And everybody thinks they're an expert on breathing because, I've been doing it every day my entire life. Clearly, I'm good at it. But there are skill levels to this, that there is highly skilled and less skilled. So people are curious because they hear people talk about their experiences. The first surprising moments is I am not fully controlling this anymore. That even though we call it conscious connected breathing, with the connected part of it being that most of the time we breathe, we inhale, we exhale, and then we pause. That pause happens so naturally that we don't even notice it's there. So we're consciously controlling this breath. But what happens after about 20 minutes, the breath starts breathing you. Momentum kicks in, the flywheel starts turning over. Your breath starts breathing you. The body is doing something intelligent all on its own, and that this momentum or flywheel is going, and your breath remains connected without you being conscious of it. And the strange paradox, you have less control, but you feel more safe. Let me repeat that again. You are mildly in control of the experience, that if you wanted to just stop, you could. But unconsciously, your body is linking one breath to the next, and you're breathing deeply and fluidly without any conscious control on your part, and this gives you a greater sense of safety. This is where confusion begins to mix with awe, that your hands will begin tingling, or your face or your body temperature shifts, really hot, really cold, can fluctuate back and forth, the muscle contractions and releases like dry needling, tremendous sense of energy moving throughout your body, almost like you're hooked up to a low-level DC current and can feel electricity flowing through you. Your mind goes, why is this happening? Now, those are just the physical sensations. People may cry for no clear reason. They'll laugh out of nowhere, anger or grief surface, deep peace or love, not a reason for it. I thought I needed to have a hallmark moment before I had emotions like this. Your thinking mind goes quiet. That inner dialogue fades away. Time becomes distorted. Your brain just goes quiet. High-functioning analytical people, they've never had a moment this quiet in their own head before. And that experience alone, which is one of the milder experiences of breathwork, can be a breakthrough for a lot of people. They can also have a sense of release without trying, that they will feel something leave their body, that they'll feel lighter, that they may release things that they didn't know what they were holding on to. Because of this, it'll change their posture, it'll change how they hold themselves, it'll change the way they feel. Inside the body will feel more expansive and lighter because they have released something, even though they can't explain what was released, how it was released, where it went, or what it was. If they are less in tune with their body, they can say, I feel different, but I don't know what changed. I have a friend who came to breathwork, probably one of my friends who is the most disconnected from his body that I have as a close friend. And after breathwork, he sat up and said, I didn't realize I had a headache until halfway through breathwork when my headache went away. You can have insight without thinking. Not always, but realizations will appear. You'll have aha moments. Patterns in your life that have been repeating become obvious. A decision that you've been contemplating about that has been weighing on you heavily becomes clear. And it doesn't feel like thinking. It feels more like remembering or knowing or seeing and remembering something obvious about yourself, like who you are. After breathwork, when people sit up, this is the thing that I love most. When people come the first time, they have a 1,000-yard stare on their face because they can't believe the experience that they have just happened. They experience deep calm, not in a relaxed sense, but in a settled sense. When we talk about calmness, calm isn't everything, isn't life is chill. It is things are going around you that you can be at a high energy state and still be calm. That it is a harmony of thought, a smoothness of thought, that you transition from one thought or one emotion to another smoothly without erratic changes. It gives you a sense of emotional openness, mental clarity, and increased presence. You feel like yourself, but more like yourself when breathwork is over. It is a revelation of you as you are. This leads to a lot of people coming out of breathwork in a state of awe and confusion, that they know that was powerful. I didn't know that I could feel like that. And the confusion of, why did that happen? Was that normal? And how did just breathing do that?
Oh, why does losing control feel safer in this environment?
Mm-hmm.
The thought that you are in control is largely a fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
Alan Watts has a quote, "You're about as in control of your life as a toddler sitting next to their dad driving who has a plastic steering wheel in front of them." That you are sawing away on your steering wheel, rocking it back and forth, thinking that what you're doing has anything to do with the outcome.
Yeah. I think this is probably a space where I have felt very out of control, both through having experiences in breathwork and doing other kinds of work. The facilitators in this space have seen me at my best and have seen me at my worst. And beyond that, growing up with, sorry, I'm trying to keep my shit together here. Growing up with examples of very conditional love, once having some tough ceremony experiences or tough breathworks experiences or just being in a shitty space and acting shittily, and then coming back into the space and coming back into the situation and being loved the exact same way that goes pretty far for me personally. Obviously, it's probably a pretty common experience, probably not universal, but it did go very far to show me that there is space that I can take up here. And I've just had a lot of experiences in this room that I haven't had anywhere else because I haven't felt safe to. And so that kind of reaffirmation of you can be who you are on all levels, vibrating low and vibrating high, and you will always be welcomed back. For the most part, I know clearly there are some people that have been welcomed away, but that's on them. I guess that's what I can come up with off the top of my head anyway.
Why does the combination of awe and confusion matter? Feels like a sweet and sour pork sort of situation.
I think it matters mostly because people don't have many experiences of awe in their life. The general expectation is that it's going to be some sort of massive event that takes place, that you're going to be at the foot of the mountain, you're going to be standing at the Grand Canyon, you're going to be at a major life event, that in order to experience awe, we expect something massive. One of the reasons I love hanging out with Kim is that every sunset is an experience of awe for her. And she's jumping up and down and wants you to go look at the sunset with me. And I'm like, it's just like yesterday.
She's like Buddy the Elf.
Yes, she is. Yes.
Congratulations on the world's best cup of coffee.
But also one of the leading indicators of the sense of fulfillment in life is regularly experiencing awe. We don't have many opportunities to experience awe. It's very difficult to go, I'm going to get up today and I'm going to generate an experience of expansiveness and massiveness and like I'm at the foot of a mountain, or maybe feel the overwhelming presence of the ocean. And it's difficult to engineer that. And then to have something happen from I'm doing the thing that I do every day and it's going to create that experience of awe is very confusing. That it can be confounding at first of how did I have this experience so easily? I think it matters in the sense that people are trying to explain it while at the same time there really is no explanation. We're going to get into the science of breath work and why it does what it does. If you look at the experience, you are never going to hear me talk to you about the amygdala and fear in the same way that you're never going to hear me talk about chakras, in the same way that you're never going to hear me talk about raising your frequency, because knowing the mechanism isn't a lever that you can actually control. That if I tell you to raise your frequency, all right, your frequency for you needs to be higher. How do I do that? Just make it higher.
Where's the knob on me?
Where's the frequency knob? It's not functional. I'm entirely concerned with like, where's the button that I push? Where's the lever that I pull? Where's the thing that I do? So a lot of this confusion is we don't understand how it works. And even if you do understand how it works, it doesn't matter.
Nobody understands how it works. I refuse to believe there's anyone that understands how it works. It's just a black box that you put emotions in and then they come out shinier.
You have a mental model of what awe-inspiring moments should be.
If we were practical people, every time we picked up our smartphone and hit a button, we would be in freaking awe. The number of people who understand what happens while I touch this little icon on my screen and then this thing pops up, and if you ask them like, well, how's it do that? No clue. We just accept that miracle. But like somehow we've been exposed to this new miracle. I connect one breath to the next and all of a sudden I'm talking to God. That needs an explanation. It has incredible intrinsic value in your life.
Okay.
The Grand Canyon. And it's not confusing because we accept it.
Like
it's part of our mental model.
Awe and confusion matter in part because it doesn't fit the pattern.
Because it's breaking a pattern in your life.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the number one benefit of it is a pattern interrupt. Most adults only learn through massive trauma.
As we age, we literally get set in our ways.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to have that experience of awe without explanation, bringing you back to childlike.
If you are a first-timer who is coming to Breath.energy and you've done Wim Hof breath work before, you've done another type of breath work before, they usually have the most powerful experiences because it moves beyond physical sensation, emotional releases, or even mental quiet or the meditative mind. And it starts to feel mystical, psychedelic, spiritual, and unexplainable. They'll say things like, I left my body and I was cruising through the universe. I saw colors and patterns and geometry, or I had visions. I felt connected to everything everywhere. I felt connected to everyone in the room. I felt connected to everything in the universe. I experienced unconditional love, that I was a drop of love in an ocean of love, and I was the drop in the ocean and at the same time. And I disappeared, but I was still here. Time dilation is very common. 2 hours will go by like 20 minutes or a decade. It can start to bleed over into what many people would characterize as a mild psychedelic experience. And this is where people have the greatest sense of confusion, especially people who have done psychedelics before, that they recognize the sensation, they recognize the space, and they are confused by the overlap of the situation, of the experience itself that overlaps with psychedelic states where their ego is becoming quieter. They have an increased sense of vividness, that all of their sensory input becomes more refined, that they hear easier, they see more easily, they're more sensitive to touch, and that they have an increased emotional amplification while at the same time feeling safe with their emotions. and that pattern and imagery generation that'll take place with their eyes closed. But the big difference is, one, there's no external substance they're taking, and two, it's completely caused by their own physiology, that there's no outside input that's creating that for them, which also allows them to control the intensity of the experience.
Breathwork's like a constant opt-in, whereas psychedelics are a one-time opt-in, and then you're on the roller coaster, whether you want to get off or not.
That is one of the downside of psychedelics, that it will be over in a scant 6 hours.
The sun will come up.
Even if you're ready for it to be over in the first 15 minutes, you got another 6 hours to go, champ. With breath work, anytime you'd like to opt out, you can stop breathing and the experience will subside.
The nice thing there is you get to keep opting in. I choose this.
You also have to opt into the experience. Maximum effort only lasts so long until you run out of juice. Physically opting in, but that emotional opt-in is something that's so much greater, that allows you to create that capacity and increase that capacity. Your wishes is not always going to happen, but you do have control over how you're going to respond. That's the emotional opt-in.
What is actually happening? Breath work is altering your brain chemistry through changes in the carbon dioxide and the oxygen balance in your blood. Anybody that talks about breath work is super oxygenating your blood, that person has no idea what they're talking about. There is no way to super oxygenate your blood. There is a way to change the carbon dioxide levels in your blood. Those shift very easily. This changes how the blood flows to the brain. It reduces the activity in the default mode network, which is the ego quieting effect. Less a sense of self and a more fluid, expansive awareness of yourself and of life. The next thing that happens because of that is you have a nervous system disinhibition, that your usual filters, part of your default mode network, anytime somebody talks about framing, paradigm, mindset, all of those are different filters you're looking at reality through. Once that default mode network goes offline, now all of the usual filters that are filtering your nervous system also go offline. So because those filters are removed, some of the suppressed material of your life, emotions, symbolics, imagery can surface, and those can feel archetypal, dreamlike. They can feel deeply meaningful. I know a lot of times I've kind of said previously, those dreamlike, vivid visions that I have, I'm like, this is really awesome, and I definitely need to remember this. And then I can't recall any of it. That emotional material needed to be dealt with. What doesn't mean that I needed to keep the story. It will increase your sense of internal awareness, that you become hyper aware of the internal sensations in your body, while you are more aware of what's happening inside of your body, that the boundary between your body and the experience of the world begins to blur, which is also a bit of a cognitive dissonance. And one of the risks, you can come out of it thinking, I'm an enlightened being now. I am now the Buddha.
Selling the house and moving to Fiji.
Yes, I have achieved enlightenment. I am spiritually awake. And they become experience chasers, that they want to get back to that state and they want to live in that state. And that state is there for you to process things, not to live there full time. The experience isn't something you achieved, it's something that you accessed. There is an afterglow after breath work that can last from 3 to 7 days. It shows you what's possible, not where you need to live. You can't go through life in any meaningful way in that type of peak experience. The goal is not the peak experience. The goal is who you become after that and who you develop. That you're not chasing the state of this peak experience, but you're just building the capacity to live a better life.
Also, if everything is peak, nothing is peak.
Eventually, that peak will become numb to it. When I'm talking to people who haven't done it before, the only experience that I talk about is of the meditative state. Pretty much 149 out of 150 people are going to have at least that level of experience. Transcendence or seeing visions or sacred geometry and colors. Not everybody has that. Not everybody has it their first time, and it takes a while. For some people, it takes quite a while to develop into that state. Reasons that not everyone has this experience. One, your nervous system might not be ready. we're not trying to give you the most intense experience that's humanly possible. We're trying to give you an optimal experience that is appropriate for the level that you're at. If you come in completely frazzled, overwhelming you is not helpful. How emotionally open you are. We've all experienced trauma in life. We've all taken damage. And when some people come through the door, they're going to be less emotionally open in the beginning than than when they develop over time. And their ability to give up analyzing and reasoning. A lot of people go into mushrooms, ayahuasca, LSD, and they do not see colors. They do not see shapes. They don't have any visuals at all. And it's because they're still analyzing and reasoning. And until they give up their analytical reasoning mind, that the emotional body can step forward so that they can have those other types of experiences. Also, there is control versus acceptance. If you are extremely controlling, you may be controlling for good reasons, that you've had a lot of things go bad in your life and you're trying to keep those things from going bad again. That it may take you time doing breath work before you realize I can let go of I don't have to white knuckle the steering wheel. I can let go a little bit, and as you let go, the depth of the experience will increase.
This is more like a gym than a restaurant. Like, you're creating and holding space for people to do the work that they are prepared, that they can show up and do. We all have access to the same equipment, but you may bench press a lot more than I do because you're coming in with more strength, as opposed to like, we're going to go to the restaurant and we're going to get served the same meal because the chef is sort of controlling this whole thing.
That's an important distinction. We did a private breath work last night where I had to make it very clear. I don't have any expectations about what your experience is going to be. I'm going to guide you through this experience, and your experience is going to be whatever your experience is going to be. Many breathwork facilitators do have a mindset of, we want this to happen in this experience. And we don't have that. I think it's arrogant to think that I know what is best for you. When we do breathwork, we're trying to connect your conscious mind to your subconscious mind. And when those connect, they'll figure out what's best for you. Far better than anything that I could diagnose or prescribe.
Some are striving for a Michelin star.
Yes.
Breathwork.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to craft your experience and you're going to like it.
Depth is not measured by intensity. A lot of times people are doing breathwork experiences and they want everybody to cry and scream and thrash and have enormous emotional releases. And you may have an large emotional release here. You may cry, you may scream, you may laugh. But that's not how, we're not measuring the depth of the experience or the success of the experience by the intensity of it. That we're more concerned with consistency than intensity, and that no experience is better than another. It probably took me 2 years to realize that I didn't have to have a level 10 experience for it to be beneficial in my life. 2 years in, I started having delicate, subtle experiences that were profoundly life-changing.
I think this is worth stating a couple of times. The pathway physiologically for breath work is the breath changes the blood changes the brain, and then that opens the door. As a person with experience in this arena, I put my skeptic hat on and I can buy breath changes, blood changes, brain. Once brain changes, all bets are off.
Correct.
Like, I'm on board now.
The experience of the brain is remarkably different. When it comes to depth versus intensity, that's where a lot of people can go wrong. The quieter, important progress is about stability, clarity, and emotional capacity and the ability to make those decisions. And a lot of times those happen in smaller moments.
It's hard not to chase the dragon sometimes.
It is hard not to chase the dragon. Personally, 2 weeks ago, I had a breathwork experience. That was trippy. That was out there. And then the next week, I was like, all right, let's do that again. And then it was super quiet, super gentle. And let's calm down there, Chief. That was your once a year off the charts breathwork session. And now we'll be back to the calm, meditative clarity that you actually need in your life. The real value of that mystical experience is it breaks their model of reality, that there's more available to you than you thought that is within you. It creates the belief within people that breathwork is real. I think that's one of the big things that comes from that thought of confusion, is that it is difficult to understand. It was difficult for me at first to comprehend, like, how can this be real? And that it opens the door for going from control to acceptance and from thinking to feeling. How many times in my life have I analyzed, reasoned, made a plan, thought it out, executed on the plan, and it went completely wrong. And when it was over, my first thought was, I need to fire my reasoning brain. But if our feelings lead us astray one time, they're immediately fired, they're thrown off the planning commission, and no longer allowed to participate in the planning and zoning anymore.
Who put them in charge?
Yeah, who put them in charge? So they make one mistake one time, but the thinking mind gets unlimited redos. Not everybody is going to have a mind-bending, reality-bending experience of breath work that I'm fairly confident you're going to have an experience of deep meditation, even if you are not a capable meditator. And by deep meditation, I mean your monkey mind turns off, the chatter turns off, the negative voice turns off. You have a place of calm and peace, and you feel calm and centered and grounded. Intensity does not equal depths. Intensity is a side effect, not the goal. It gives you a glimpse of how you can live, that as you're healing, it may include enormous emotional releases. It may not. The self-awareness that you experience may give you incredible insights and revelations, or it might just give you a further insight of, oh, I see what I'm doing here and I could make a better choice. And that it'll lead to that self-actualization of living a better life, of achieving your full potential, not by redlining the motor every day, but by integrating that self-awareness that you have about yourself so that you can achieve your capability, again, without redlining the motor or trying to grind all day. That the mystical states are glimpses along the path. They're not the path itself.
More skillful, less skillful. The breath changes the blood, changes the brain, and you won't ever have a map to the dragon, the mystical dragon you might be trying to chase. But you have some sense of feedback. Whereas with meditation, you made the point of meditation is wandering around in the cornfield, blindfolded, looking for a piñata. The blindfold coming off with breath work, you have at least the knob of the breath changes the blood, changes the brain. And so you can improvise your way through that jazz concert, so to speak.
Also, the more skillful, less skillful part of it is how easily you can connect one breath to the next breath. Inhale, and then we relax on the exhale. When does the exhale end? And it's much like when you hear this ringing of a chime, that when does the sound of the chime end? And if you pay very close attention to it, it drifts off, it drifts off, it drifts off, and you're really never sure the exact moment when it stops. And I feel the same way about the exhales when you relax, that at first I was very unsure about when does this exhale end and the inhale begin. And for me, it probably took me about 3 months to develop being more skillful in linking the exhale to the inhale. And when was the proper time? When does the wave hit the bottom and now the wave is going up? The breath is circular. The start of inhale takes place top of the circle. And then the end of the inhale is the bottom of the circle, and then we start exhaling. We can see it very clearly in that model. And then if we do it on a wave, we kind of see the apex and the bottom of the wave. We see those areas close fairly well, but if you stretch it out long enough, it does get a little bit difficult to see where the exact bottom is and where that transition takes place. And the same thing can happen in the breath. So for me, that's where all the skill was. For other people, certainly beginner breathwork people, we're asking you to breathe from the bottom of your belly to the top. That you're going to fill your belly first and try and think of yourself like a glass of water, that you're being filled from the bottom to the top. Physiologically, that's difficult for a lot of people, especially if they've been chest breathing for years, if they're very tight, that you'll hear them take a full breath and it'll be like half a second they go, and then their breath is over and like, no, keep inhaling. And that's all they have. They may need that development in their rib cage, in their belly, to be able to open the system up so that they can take a bigger breath. That may be where the skill is for them.
Like there are literally musculoskeletal constrictions that can happen to people because of
trauma,
posture,
the way they breathe, posture, the way they work, the way they sit at their desk. All of those things can tighten up the intercostals in their rib cage. That makes it more difficult for them to breathe. There are times when I see people take an inhale, I'm like, oh, we've got some work to do here. I forgot. There could be that level of impediment.
Either the circle visual or the sine wave for the breath. Would like a normal breathing pattern that has a pause in it, would that be more like a heartbeat sort of graph, where like you see the spike of the inhale, it comes down a flat part? Conscious connected breathing is to really make it that smooth sine wave, that nice curvature.
That there's not a harsh transition between them.
And
That you don't get to the top of your breath and you're completely full. And there's that momentary pause before you let go.
Yeah.
It just smoothly transitions from one to the next.
the chime thing is interesting, like playing notes on an instrument. If you wait until you know it's over, you miss the opportunity to play the next one. And if you are too impatient, it's abrupt. If you're already trying to inhale before that exhale has taken place, you get into this choppy pattern. So
It should be a smooth rhythm, which can be difficult
Right.
to generate at first.
which could be the physical, like the constriction of the intercostals and the rib cage.
One of the exercises I used to do with people doing private breath work is I would take I had little stuffed animals and I'd put it on their belly and make them watch the stuffed animal so that they know they're breathing with their belly and not with their chest. The little stuffy that's sitting on their belly should be moving up and down. And for some people, that's remarkably difficult. Incredibly attractive, slender women do not want to breathe into their belly. That is a no. We're going to make that belly bigger and expand it. And they're like, nope, not going to do that.
Incorrect.
We are not going to. That pattern is full, Ghost Rider.
I had a
Good
coach
night.
do a similar thing on the side. Can you get your rib cage to hit something on the side as it expands?
Yeah, the alligator.
That one actually took me quite a while. It took a lot of physiological change to get my rib cage to expand.
If you want to do one that's really difficult, get the
always.
right underneath the ribs in your back. Get that to expand as you're breathing.
Oh, yeah, that's.
I think I did 5 breaths like that and was like, whew, I need to take a knee.
I might need to see Casey after that.
Yeah, it is. That was surprisingly difficult, even years into breathwork. It's just practice. I think it's just part of the conscious part of it is being conscious of when does it begin, when does it end, and figuring out that, like you said, it ends sooner than you think, and it begins a little bit sooner. You're not taking it down to 0%. Somewhere around 20 to 15% is where the breath is going to transition. How you breathe is how you live. How you live is how you breathe. When Kim does breath work, she breathes very quickly.
Right.
The hummingbird. Her breath pattern is very quick. When I do breath work, it is a very slow, methodical. My breaths are somewhere between 5 to 7 seconds. They're really drawn out, really slow. Kim's breaths are like a second and a half. Now, why is it like that? Well, because how you breathe is how you live. That I have a very slow, methodical tempo that's going on inside of my head, and Kim's is like tick, 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 all the time. But it'll also affect the depth of your breath. How deep are you as a person? How fast is your tempo? All of the things that show up in your personality are going to show up in your breath, and that it is easier to modify your breath than it is to modify that trait.
I tend to start heavy and fast and then like oscillate between slow and fast. And I let whatever the experience is guide me through that. And I don't know if that's like me processing things, but I notice it is different depending on what I bring. If you and Kim are two ends of the spectrum and I'm maybe somewhere in the middle.
So why can the breathwork experience be so disorienting? Because it violates a lot of the core assumptions. The assumption is this is going to take a lot of effort. Breathwork feels effortless. It's not, but it can feel effortless. Early on, I set an intention that I wanted to be comfortable with emotional discomfort. And it was amazing how easily that transition took place. You have the thought that you need to understand something first, and then you can make a change, but it works the other way. Feelings come first and the understanding comes later. You have the thought that emotions need stories, that I need a hallmark moment to make me cry. You don't. You will just spontaneously have an emotional release. You have the thought, because I am control, I am safe, and that control equals safety. And it turns out letting go actually feels better. The body is the storehouse of all your wisdom. Your body understands things that your mind doesn't. Anytime you've seen anybody who's incredibly athletic or incredibly athletic naturally, that's not coming from their brain, that's coming from their body. Healing is almost never cognitive. You don't look at a cut on your finger and focus on it and go, heal. Let me stitch this skin together. That there's not an analytical reasoning part of you that is causing that healing. And the same thing happens with your emotions. It's not an analytical, reasoning, cognitive thing. It's something that happens under the right conditions. Many times in our life, we feel like we have the thought that emotions are the enemy. And really, emotions are the pathway. Everything that you want in your life is a feeling. That when most of the time when people say they want to be independently wealthy, they don't want oodles and oodles of money. What they want is to not have the feeling of worry about paying their bills. Hey, I want to know that my bills are paid. That'll make me feel safe. Oh, wait a minute. That's a feeling. It's not the money. It's the feeling of safety. It's the feeling of everything is taken care of. The version that walks out of breath work is calmer, clearer, and more open. That's the version that already exists within them. When you come to breath work, you don't learn something, although if you do learn something, the thing that you learn is how effective breath work is. But you learn that because you experience something. Your mind is confused because it wasn't in charge, and that's exactly why it worked. It didn't make sense to your mind, but it makes perfect sense to your nervous system. We're going to close out today's episode with a poem by Dana Faulds titled, "There is no point in asking for a map. There is no map. The way is not a way at all, but a yielding. There is no reason to look for the meaning of life. The purpose of your existence or the secret of the universe. All of that is a way of looking away from the moment. The point is to be here, feeling the energy as it moves through you, yielding to the flow of it, allowing it to be exactly what it is. There is no reason to push. There is no reason to strive. Just be here, feeling the life as it lives you." Again, that was Allow by Dana Faulds. We spend a lot of our lives trying to be the expert of our own experience, white-knuckling that disconnected plastic steering wheel while the real current of life moves beneath us. But as we've explored today, white-knuckling was never effective. It turns out that letting go actually feels better. The breath is our most reliable lever to drop out of the toil and trouble of the analytical mind and into the deep ocean of who we actually are. As Dana Faulds reminds us, there is no point in asking for a map. The way is not a way at all, but a yielding. You won't ever have a map to the dragon or your own subconscious, but you don't need one. You just need to be here, feeling the energy as it moves through you. In this practice, feeling comes first and understanding comes later. It starts simple, again, almost too simple, until the flywheel turns over and the breath starts breathing you. You move from the effort of doing to the grace of being, no longer the one driving, but the one being lived by life. When you sit up with that 1,000-yard stare after your first breath work, it's because you finally stopped pushing and started allowing. You've realized that healing is almost never cognitive. It doesn't happen in your brain. It's not made up of an insight or an aha moment. It's a physical allowing that happens when the conditions are right. You aren't just a drop in the ocean. You're the ocean in the drop. So as you head back into the world, remember, you don't need to strive. You just need to be here, feeling the life as it lives you. How you breathe is how you live. Take a yielding breath.